In this episode of Via VHS, we're going back to the year 1984 to revisit the cult classic, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension.
This is Via VHS.
Buckaroo, President's on line 1, calling about is everything okay with the alien spacecraft from Planet 10, or should he just go ahead and destroy Russia?
Tell him yes on 1 and no on 2.
Which was yes, destroy Russia, or number 2?
So Buckaroo Banzai is a film that has been on my watch list for longer than I care to admit. I've been meaning to get to this film for a really, really long time. It's just one of those things I've always put back for something else. Like, oh, I really want to see this, but there's also this other film that's really been nagging at me, and I always choose the other film for some reason. And it's nothing against Buckaroo Banzai. I honestly just didn't know enough about it. And if I had researched it a little bit more, especially if I knew the cast that was in this film, I would have watched this years ago. So Buckaroo Banzai has had a mild resurgence in popularity over the past couple years, mainly due to Ready Player One. The main character, Parzival, dresses as Buckaroo Banzai at one point in the film. I think he does so in the book as well. I did read the book. I'm not proud of that, but I did read the book of Ready Player One. And so that kind of brought Buckaroo Banzai to people's attention a little bit more. It's been in the forefront of people's minds just a little bit more. And same goes for me. And I saw that it was streaming, and I thought, this is the perfect opportunity to go ahead and see this film. And so I finally did. So I put a lot of thought into how I wanted to approach this film for a review, because explaining this film as somebody who has seen it to somebody who hasn't is very difficult. And I also think it's really easy just to write this film off as some weird, zany thing. And not that it's not weird and zany, because it very much so is, but Buckaroo Banzai is very creative. It's very unique. It's a peculiar viewing experience, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. But I think it's more intelligent than it lets on to be, but it does that without taking itself too seriously. It's a lot of genres rolled into one. It's just an all over the place mess. This is the 80s. Did cocaine influence this film? Quite possibly. I'm gonna let you be the judge of that. If you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. But this is a strange, fun journey, Buckaroo Banzai. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension was released on August 15th, 1984. It was directed by W.D. Richter. It stars Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai himself, and then has a great supporting cast. Not that Peter Weller isn't great himself. He's awesome, and he's perfect for this role. But you also have Ellen Burkham, you have Christopher Lloyd, you have John Lithgow, and Jeff Goldblum. Now, the whole cast is great, but those three actors I mentioned last in particular have a lot of uniqueness in their filmography. Just check out their IMDb. They've played all kinds of weird, interesting, wonderfully strange characters, and in a sense, they're wonderfully strange. So having those three actors in this film really is what made me want to watch it. When I looked it up, I looked things up before I watched it. I was like, oh, I want to know a little bit about this film. And when I saw the cast, I was immediately sold. Couldn't wait to watch this film. So I mentioned this is a peculiar viewing experience. The best way to describe this is Instead of thinking you're watching a film called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, imagine from a story perspective that you picked up a serialized pulp comic or whatever, and you are reading, and it's called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, and you're reading issue number 39, Across the Eighth Dimension. This film throws you into a world as if you're familiar with it. It's really odd. Now there is this like little intro at the beginning, and it tells you a little bit about who Buckaroo Banzai is, and sets up the world just a little bit, but it's very minimal, and it just throws you into the story like you're watching another episode of, you know, some series that you're familiar with. You know the characters, you know the backstories, the subplots, you know the world, you understand the rules of the world. It treats you as if you know that, and you absolutely do not. And this is a very unique, interesting, complex little world that they've created that's also doesn't take itself seriously, is absolutely silly and fun, but it is kind of jarring in a way that it kind of just throws you into things unless you figure it out for yourself. But it's also kind of refreshing. I enjoyed it and was frustrated by it simultaneously. It can be a little messy, it can be a little chaotic. You know, I don't want to give too much away about my thoughts for the film. But right away I'll say I'm not sure if a movie is the best structure to present Buckaroo Banzai. I don't know if it is, at least in the way they did it. It was kind of hard to follow, but I had so much fun that I didn't care. But it also leaves you wanting more, which is a good thing, but you don't get any more. This is all you have. You just have this. This is Buckaroo Banzai, and that's it. So Buckaroo Banzai himself is a polymath. He's a Renaissance man. Imagine, actually, the Renaissance is a good way to describe this. Imagine that the Italian Renaissance was taking place during the 80s, and scientists and men of critical thinking and intelligent people are kind of treated like rock stars, but they are also rock stars. I mean, you think of Leonardo da Vinci, who was one of the most brilliant minds of our time. He invented things. He was a great scientist, but also, you know, he was an artist. He, you know, was an incredible artist. And that Buckaroo Banzai is like the 80s version of that. He's just, he can do all things. And it's a really, really interesting concept. So surrounding Buckaroo Banzai is his team called Team Banzai. And it is filled with other really intelligent people, scientists, doctors, who are also rock stars. They're called the Hong Kong Cavaliers. It's his main core group. And they play in a band together, and they have adventures. They do great things, really, really interesting things. And the biggest shame about this movie is you don't get to know these characters enough. I mean, it builds this great world that just can't be covered in the length of the film. That's what's so frustrating about it. But it's really, really fun. But the Hong Kong Cavaliers kind of travel around with Buckaroo Banzai in this, you know, like a tour bus, and play, you know, rock concerts and do all kinds of interesting things like that. It's really, really fun. In addition to that, in Team Banzai, there's kind of like little militias or kinds of like little groups as part of their network spread out across the country. So within Team Banzai, you have like the Blue Blazer Regulars, you have the Rug Suckers, and different people like that across the country who network with Team Banzai and help them when they're in a jam or, you know, whatever it is they do. And the way the world's kind of set up is it seems like there's other polymaths out there. There's other characters like Buckaroo Banzai, maybe even arch rivals, but they're not really. I think that one of them is mentioned in passing in this film, but you don't meet any of them. And that was also kind of frustrating too, because I would have loved to explore that element of this world a little bit. But from what I understand, that there was another polymath character like Buckaroo Banzai, talked about a little bit more, like an arch nemesis, but that was cut from the film. I wish they would have left that in, because I like to think that this is Buckaroo Banzai is not the only guy like this, and Team Banzai is not the only team like this. Definitely not going to go through the whole story. I want you to watch this film. Please watch it, because I need somebody to enjoy this with me. But to kind of give a little bit of a setup, what's going on is you're thrown into this adventure where Buckaroo Banzai at the beginning of this film is working with Dr. Hikita, and they are using this machine that they've perfected called the overthruster. And the purpose of this machine is to go interdimensional, go through objects and go to another dimension and back out on the other side. It's a weird, fun thing. So they do this. They go through a mountain. They go through another dimension. They pick up some alien cargo on the way. Some interesting creature attaches to the van that he goes through another dimension with. Yes, he goes through the eighth dimension in a van with rockets attached to it. It's awesome. But anyway, Dr. Hikita, who helped him with this, his former partner, who is missing, he's actually in a loony bin, sees that they accomplished this amazing feat, and he goes into action. And it turns out, way back in the past, he almost did what Buckaroo Banzai did. He got halfway trapped in this dimension, and these alien creatures kind of brainwash him. Long story short, there's some aliens who are trapped in this dimension as a result of an intergalactic war, and they want to break free. And then another group of aliens want to keep them there, and it's about to trigger an amazing war, and Earth is in the crossfire, and World War III may happen. I don't know, because it's the 80s. I mean, you got to have Russia involved somehow. This film does that. And so basically Buckaroo Banzai has to fix the situation along with his friends, the Hong Kong Cavaliers, and all his regulators and all those people. I could go into more detail. I don't know if I really want to. I don't know if I have the time to, but Buckaroo Banzai is easy to follow, but also complicated at the same time. It's all over the place. But I think that might be one of the reasons the film didn't fare so well, honestly. It's just hard to... Word of mouth must have been difficult for this film. How do you explain it to somebody? I mean, what do you say? This film made very little money. It didn't do very well at the box office. Wasn't a huge hit, which is a shame, because at the end of the movie, they tease a potential sequel to this film where Buckaroo Banzai goes against the World Crime League, which would have been awesome, because I would have loved to get more of this world, more of these characters. It kind of flush it out just a little bit more. And not that anything spoon-fed to me. I like that this film doesn't do that, but it just leaves you with not enough. It just in isolation, this film feels like an incomplete work. Good news is this film has gained cult status in the years since. It's very well loved. There's a huge fan base for this film. It's kind of regarded as an intelligent, kind of a geek film, which I mean in a good way. It's an endearing way. Because this film, it's weird. It's like there's highbrow sci-fi mixed into a comedy that you don't take too seriously. I mean, Christopher Lloyd's character is John Big Booty, but they call him Big Booty throughout the film. I mean, it's just little silly jokes like that, but there's all these interdimensional stuff going on in space and science. It's really, really odd, but this film has gained appreciation over the years, and since there has been several attempts to kind of revive this series, all to no avail. A few years ago, Kevin Smith was actually trying to revive Buckaroo Banzai through a TV series. Now, I don't know if he was planning on directing it. I have my reservations if that was the plan, because I think as a director, Kevin Smith has kind of lost his way a little bit. But as somebody who's a voice within the industry and who's like, podcasts and all the different things that he does, I love Kevin Smith in that capacity. I think he's great. As a director, some of his newer stuff is kind of weird, but if he was producing Buckaroo Banzai, I'd be all for it. And I think a TV series would be the perfect way to do Buckaroo Banzai. I think honestly, I don't think the confines of a movie works well with Buckaroo Banzai. There's too much world to explore. There's too much creativity within. It's just such a unique idea and experience that I just don't think a movie is the best way to do it. That said, I still think it's a fun film. As I mentioned, the cast, I think that's its best quality. Peter Weller is perfect for Buckaroo Banzai. He is stoic and has charisma at the same time. He's really confident. You grow attached to him. He's got this kind of natural leader vibe. Somebody that you can buy as intelligent, but also a rock star. Peter Weller was great for this. He did great in this role. But all the cast did. Clancy Brown in here. I didn't mention him before. I love Clancy Brown in pretty much anything. But Lithgow, Goldblum, and oh my gosh, Christopher Lloyd. Those three actors, absolutely love. Now Goldblum doesn't get to shine as much in this one. He's not DEFCON 5 Goldblum. He's not super Goldblummy, but some of that Goldblum charm is there. He's dressed as a cowboy through the entire film. I don't think do they explain why? I don't know. I can't remember if they explain why, but he's dressed as a cowboy. John Lithgow plays Dr. Lizardo, or John Worfen. He's the former scientist that was the original doctor working on the Overthruster project kind of gets halfway sent into the dimension. He becomes the villain. John Lithgow is incredible in this, steals the show, hilarious. The way he words things, the way he communicates is just bizarre. And one of the things about this film is there's a lot of the jokes that go by that you don't realize that was a joke at the beginning, and a lot of that is John Lithgow. He'll say a line and then you just hear it, and then a few seconds later, like, oh wow, that was kind of funny. John Lithgow was great in this. Christopher Lloyd's dressed as an alien the most of the film. What else do I need to sell you on this? Christopher Lloyd's an alien. I mean, this is absolutely fun. In the end, Buckaroo Banzai has a lot of heart. It's a lot of creativity. It's a very cozy movie. It's very inviting. I want you to watch it. I want you to have a fun time. The characters are lovable. The whole world is lovable, really. My final score for this film is 6.5. Now, some would argue that's a little low. Like I said before, I just don't think the constraints of a movie work for Buckaroo Banzai. I feel like this is definitely a better TV show. That's just my opinion. But I definitely get why people love this film so much, and I wouldn't be opposed to a series of films with Buckaroo Banzai. If that was the project that come to fruition, I'm totally fine with it. It gets a little messy, it gets a little chaotic. I would like it to have been a little more coherent at times, but the heart and lovability, it kind of outshines its flaws. But I definitely recommend Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, but be warned, it's a little odd. In terms of wrapping up this review, there's so much I want to say. There's so many little elements of this film that I would want to dig my teeth into. The ex-girlfriend situation that's also his ex-girlfriend's twin sister, who's now, that's weird. There's a whole subplot about Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, which is really, really interesting and fun. Other characters I didn't even get to talk about. I could go on forever, but I really want you to watch the film. That's why I do this. So if you have seen Buckaroo Banzai, let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I not give it a high enough score? Do you think this is one of the most underrated gems of all time? Did I misunderstand it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. You might have thought this was absolutely weird, pointless, you hated it. I also want to hear about that too. Try to be nice about it, I guess, but I get it. This film, I don't think is for everybody. I've really enjoyed it, but I could definitely see people not liking it at all. So again, stay tuned. A lot of new reviews on the way. If you want to yell at me elsewhere, you can go to Twitter @ViaVHS, or you can go to Instagram @ViaVHSPod. A lot of great stuff on both those places. I'm usually pretty responsive, so if you have anything you want to say, find me there. But with that, I hope you watch Buckaroo Banzai. I hope you enjoy it, and ViaVHS is out.